Tim Bontemps from ESPN, one of their national NBA writers, spent a lot of time out here obviously covering the Warriors before we lost him to Eastern pasture, if you will. But man, the main interest in this league still remains out on the West Coast, Tim. The Warriors, with their amount of nationally televised games, followed by the Lakers, and then the Celtics find themselves in there. But it's Suns, it's Clippers, it's Mavericks. Not that Dallas is necessarily on the West Coast, but still an awful lot of interest on this coast in the NBA indeed. How are you, pal?
I'm doing well, Damon. How are you guys doing?
We're excellent, thank you very much. I know that you know everyone gets schedules, they come on out. I don't know if you just ran right to the Golden State Warriors schedule to take a look at it, but in terms of this being scheduled release day, what's the first thing that popped out to you?
I mean, honestly, Damon, the thing I think that's most interesting about the schedule in general is that for the first time in as long as I can remember, the Lakers' schedule isn't backloaded. Now, for fans at home who don't really understand what I say that, basically, the Lakers have always had their schedule pushed towards the end of the season in terms of having all the marquee games because during football season, my network and TNT tried to save the marquee matchups for after football's over. And then they really make a big push over the second half of the year to have a lot of marquee games. Golden State, as you guys know, is all over the schedule basically from January 1st on, really from Christmas on, because they're the number one draw in the league, as you have pointed out correctly before. What's interesting about the Lakers is they've only got a couple of national TV games after the All-Star break. And to me, what I think that says is everybody, maybe outside of L.A. has sort of figured out that, despite the fact that they have LeBron James and Anthony Davis on their team, this Laker team is not likely to be in the hunt as it stands now. Now, obviously, if they swing a Kyrie Irving trade at some point or something like that, maybe things will change. But as constituted, they're just not good enough. And so, it's kind of a wonky thing. But I think looking at that, I think it's recognition that really across the league, everybody just doesn't see the Lakers as the kind of threat that you would think a team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis would be.
Tim Bontemps from ESPN joining us here on 95.7 The Game. We're going to quickly try to get him on a little bit better of a connection before we get back to him. We'll have a What If Wednesday coming up in our 5 o'clock hour this afternoon as well. I also want to get Tim's thoughts here on Rivalry Week, which feels like manufactured promotional vehicle more than actual NBA rivals, but so on and so forth. Is Tim back? We got him ready to go? No, we're working on it.
Tim got a better offer.
From who?
Does it matter?
Well, I mean...
The pizza delivery man.
The pizza showed up?
If the pizza showed up, absolutely. I'd hang up on me if the pizza showed up. But, no, I mean, I'm a little surprised that, that the Lakers are now that diminished in the league's eyes. I have a feeling that LeBron James creates his own buzz.
He does, but
I think the team that you're going to see a lot less of than you thought you would is Brooklyn for the obvious reason.
Yeah, especially if a deal gets done that sends him out of town. I believe we have Tim Bontemps back now, hopefully on a little bit of better connection. Tim, you with us again?
Yep.
Oh, there it is, crystal clear, baby. As you were saying, luster being lost from the Lakers, but they do actually have some news today. A 2-year, $97.1 contract extension for LeBron. Was there ever any doubt in your mind that he was going to angle for that and then leave himself a little walk room, maybe for Bronny in his final season or two?
Well, I mean, certainly, Damon, the fact that he has an opt-out in 2 years, it certainly sets him up to have the ability to walk away from the Lakers and go wherever his kid is at in a couple of years if he wants to. But I was surprised that this happened just because, as we were talking about before, this Lakers team is not good enough to compete right now, and I thought their best chance to be as competitive as possible with LeBron and AD was for LeBron to take some less money, a little bit less money in that next deal, sort of like what James Harden did this summer in Philly and allow them to fill in the roster around him. The fact that he didn't, while certainly he's entitled to get every cent he can get, it does put them in a position where it's going to be difficult to have a good enough team around them to really compete for championships. So, it is an option that's now off the table, and I'm a little surprised that he ultimately decided to go that way. I thought he might end up going the other way. So, Was surprised it happened. Not surprised he got the max. If he did extend, he was obviously going to always extend this way. And I think it shows that really since he got to L.A., his priorities were to be in L.A. and now to play with his kid. And I think this contract, exercises, checks both those boxes. And we'll see if the Lakers can get themselves to a position where they're going to be good enough to actually compete for a championship as well.
Can it be read, though, as an admission by him that the Lakers aren't going to be fixed in the near term, and that trying to figure out a way to take less money is basically just taking less money, and it doesn't really fix what ails the Lakers?
I think, if you ask me, what it says, Ray, is that I think what it says to me is that LeBron's priorities are not necessarily winning first, right? And I think that's been the case, really, if you go back to the moment he came to Los Angeles. Like, for the first 15 years of LeBron's career, everything he did was geared towards winning, right? He changed, went to Miami to play with Dwayne and Chris. He goes back to Cleveland to play with Kevin Love and Kyrie. He's constantly pushing for teams to trade young players for vets, to improve all the time, to trade all their picks, right? Everything was geared toward trying to accumulate wins and championships and be as successful as possible. And then he decides to go play for a Laker team that was not a playoff team, had not been in the playoffs for several years, did not have, had pieces that could go get another star player, but there was no guarantee they were going to be able to get another star player. But he wanted to be in LA. And really ever since then, he hasn't exerted the same kind of pressure on the Lakers that he did on the prior franchise he was with. He hasn't signed short-term contracts. He's signed, deals without player options is the first option he's had, I think, since he came to the Lakers. So it's just been interesting to see that shift in approach from him. And I think really, like I said before, to me, if you're looking at this by his actions signal that his two biggest priorities are to be in Los Angeles and to play with his kid eventually. And by signing this contract, he completed both of those goals in terms of what he wants to do.
I also think he's putting himself in a position to be a leading scorer and to get that all-time NBA scoring title.
Yeah, Damon, he would have got that with any team this year. Like that's going to happen regardless.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's only 50 or so games away if he scores mid-20s a game. Like he would do that on any team. But and look, to be clear, I don't think it's not. I don't look at that as any kind of negative thing from his standpoint.
No.
He's to do what they want to do, but I just find it fascinating that it's been a clear shift from him in terms of what he was going after for such a long time. It's now been a very clear shift in another direction, that these are the things that he is now interested in. And it's playing in L.A. and having the ability in 2 years of his kids in the league to play with his kid.
Tim Bontemps from ESPN here on 95.7 The Game. So the Warriors are very much still in the winning championships business.
Yep.
And I tell you, they had the really soft landing in their schedule built into the front end, and they took advantage of it, and it's a good thing that they did because they needed all of it by the time that they got where they were going. They're going to jump right into this season with 9 games in their first month against teams that qualified as playoff teams last year, and 12 of their final 16 opponents also in the thick of teams that were playoff teams last year. So it feels like the Warriors, they're going to be hunted once again. They've got a loaded up schedule. I don't know how many breaks are built in for or against them, but they're going to start with a rough one, and they're going to end up with a rough one in terms of scheduling.
Yeah, I mean, my stance on the schedule is pretty much always that everybody plays 82, and they play 41 at home and 41 on the road, and that's just sort of the way it breaks out, right? So I don't really read too much into whether anybody had schedule for or against them. What I will say, though, is to your point earlier when we started about how the Warriors are a marquee, the marquee draw in the league. When you're the marquee draw in the league, you're going to get a ton of national TV games. If you're going to get a ton of national TV games, you're going to play a lot of really good teams, right? And I think that's what it's a sign of, is to your final point there about the Warriors being the hunted team again. But, even over the last couple of years as they were sort of getting back to being a championship caliber team, past all the injuries to everybody, obviously Steph and Draymond and, Klay Thompson, these guys are a major draw. But now that they won the title, they've come back again. They have the most national TV games in the league. They are the marquee draw again in the league, and as a result, they're going to get a ton of big-time games. They're going to have a difficult stretches in the schedule. And like you said, you start off the year, the big blowout to begin the year, play a bunch of high-profile games. You're playing on Christmas. You're playing on all the big days. You're playing on Saturday and Sunday on ABC. And like you said, you're part of the closing stretch of the schedule where we ramp things up before the playoffs. So, I think it's just in keeping with the fact that the Warriors are the number one team in the league, and as a result, they're going to be in everybody's face on national TV as much as they can see them they can see them as much as they want on those platforms.
Does that represent any kind of competitive advantage or disadvantage, or and I'm not thinking in terms of how the teams they would play would be different because those are set, years in advance. But just in the days that they're playing, is there a problem that a team that plays that many national TV games has in terms of, when they play and when these games are bunched together?
I think that was more of a case, Ray, back before the NBA really made a proactive push to make the schedule a little easier on teams in those games, right? Now they've really gone out of their way to make sure there's no game on either side of these national TV games, so everybody plays at all the games. So that's less of an issue now. Certainly if you're playing in sort of those prime marquee games, obviously you're going to have some days where you're going to be playing on nights where fewer teams are playing. That might lead to, a couple extra rest nights here and there that might hurt you a little bit, but ultimately that's all margin stuff. And like I said, maybe 7-8 years ago it was a bigger problem when the league didn't really take into consideration really prioritizing those national TV games. But now, you're playing against the best teams and you're playing them generally with everybody having time off. So if anything, it might eliminate some of the, random second half of back-to-back against good team games that you might sit a couple good players. Whereas now the Warriors are going to play all those games at full strength, and the Warriors are full strength against just about any opponent. As you guys both know, they're going to feel pretty good about their chances of winning.
Just get to the finish line healthy, and anything can happen. It's been proven time and time again. Tim Bontemps, final question for you. Kevin Durant, when will it end?
I guess if you mean when will it end in terms of when he'll be traded, I don't think he's going to get traded at all, frankly. So
it never ends. We're in a cycle of permanent misery with Kevin Durant.
I don't know if I quite put it that way, but I do think that there's nothing that has happened so far. Damon has shown me that any team is going to be willing to change their offer for KD. They don't see a need to try to entice the Nets to make a move now. And as long as that remains the case, Kevin Durant's going to be on the Nets. And I guess he could potentially try to not play or hold out or something, but I just don't think that's anything he's going to want to do. He wants to play, and my prediction is he's going to be there at the opening of training camp playing for the Nets. And then, after the trade deadline, again, I still think it's more likely than not that he's on the Nets all season and he gets traded. Now, obviously, we could see some team panic during the season or have injuries or struggle and decide to make a big swing. So maybe something changes later, but it just doesn't seem like the Nets are going to get the kind of offer they want. And ultimately, Kevin Durant's under contract for 4 years. And so if the Nets are willing to stick to their guns and say, hey, man, you're going to play in the NBA, you're going to play for our team, they're probably going to be better off having Kevin Durant on their team than any trade they could make. So, as long as the offers stay where they are, I think he's going to be a net. And frankly, if those three guys, him, Ben Simmons, and Kyrie, are all playing, they're probably going to be awfully good too. So, like you said, I don't think this is ending anytime soon. I'll put it that way.
Tim, thank you very, very much. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you, man. Thank you for joining us today.
Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me. Talk to you again soon.